Hello, everyone. Welcome to Friday, April 23rd, with our ongoing series, I guess, on the Daily Dozen by Dr. Michael Greger. So today we move on to greens, the Daily Dozen, the greens. So the ones that are included in greens, which are amazing, right, are arugula, which is people often don't think of it. It's small. Beet greens, collard greens, kale, all types of kale, mesclun mix, like a spring green, a young salad, the spring greens, the spring mix that you get in the store. Mint actually counts as a green, though you probably wouldn't put enough in to count as a serving. Mustard greens, sorrel, spinach, um, Swiss chard, sorry, and turnip greens, as well as watercress, and so is another great one. So the serving sizes are 1 cup raw or half a cup cooked, and the recommendation is 2 servings a day. So why? Why? So the dark leafy green vegetables are literally the healthiest food on the planet. They offer the absolute most nutrition per calorie. Think a pound of spinach is 100 calories, and they are just antioxidant powerhouses. So now, over several days, you've heard me talk about the powers of antioxidants. I talked about a lot in the berries, but the greens are really, the beans and greens are really berries and greens are really the two antioxidant powerhouses. So why are greens the healthiest, right? So and it comes down to the dark green pigment chlorophyll, right? So we're all familiar with chlorophyll. Remember, um, back in high school or younger than that, science class. So, and the chlorophyll actually protects against carcinogens. So it works by binding to carcinogens and preventing them slipping into our DNA. So I've said several times about how all day long our cells are attacked by oxidative stress and free radicals, and it's these changes that then can become mutations and cause cancer. So these really kind of mop up those carcinogens and mop up those changes and correct them. So preventing the mutations really has to do so that it prevents the mutations that lead to cancer. So you know how red peppers are green first, right? And oranges and lemons, if you've grown them, are green first before they turn their colors. So that's because the green contains many of the other pigments that are all wrapped up in one package. So so literally when you eat your greens, you're actually eating the whole rainbow. So we say eat the rainbow, meaning eat all the different colors. But when you eat your greens, you're getting the power of all those different color antioxidants wrapped up into one thing. So that's amazing, right? The power of that. So, of all the food groups analyzed by a team at Harvard, the greens turned out to be associated with the strongest protection against chronic diseases, including a 20% reduction in risk of strokes and heart attacks for every additional serving. So not like just by eating them, but for every additional serving, you get another 20% reduction in risk of strokes and heart attacks. And part of this is because it helps produce this messenger in our body called nitric oxide. So if you've ever thought about nitroglycerin, right? So we give people nitroglycerin. You've probably all heard about it who have chest pain. And what does it do? It vasodilates. It opens up the blood vessels so you don't have as much stress. But so that is it's nitroglycerin, so it's nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is a messenger in the body, and it essentially tells the muscles and the lining of our blood vessels to relax, to chill out, stop being so tight, right? So greens are really rich in natural nitrates, not nitrites. Nitrites are bad, nitrates are good. Greens are rich in natural nitrates that our body then converts into nitric oxide. So one study actually showed a 10-point systolic blood pressure drop, which is a big, if we get that with pills, we're happy, within an hour of consuming beet juice, which is really high in nitrates. Actually, before I do some long distance cycling, I have a beet supplement that I take. It really opens up your blood vessels. It's like a little juice, and it increases your blood vessels, increase blood flow to your muscles, and really helps. So, and actually, I don't know if people are familiar with Dr. Esselstyn. I know we're talking about Dr. Greger, but Dr. Esselstyn, he's a physician out of Cleveland Clinic. He is famous for his reversing heart disease program, and he took people who were sent home and told they had 6 months to live, and now 20, 30 years later, they're still living. So, but he's famous for that program, but he actually recommends 6 servings of greens a day for people with heart disease to help reduce that demand on their heart. So other things it's wonderful for, so the high antioxidant amount in greens have also been found to decrease systemic inflammation. So it's all about antioxidants, right? Much better than lower antioxidants vegetables such as like bananas or iceberg lettuce. So iceberg lettuce is not a green. It can count as water. That's pretty much the only good thing in it, but it does not count as a green. And I always say, if there was a pill, and this is the thing that one of the many things that drives me crazy, that you could get all these results, the decrease in the blood pressure, the reduction in heart attack risk and stroke risk. There would be a pill. If there was a pill, people would take it, and it would make millions and billions of dollars. But when you tell people you can have the same effect, just eat greens, people don't do it. So people just like to pop a pill. So let's talk about the actual greens. So kale comes in several forms: green, black, or red. So kale is the one that people always think of, but there are clearly many other types of greens. You do not need to eat kale, but kale is kind of like the godfather of the greens. So there's green, black. Green is the common curly kale that we're all familiar with. And then I actually have show and tell today from my garden. So green, curly kale, right? Curly kale. And then there is black kale. So the black kale is also known as lacinato kale or diner set kale. And this is what that looks like. And you can get this in the grocery store. I mean, you can get it at Publix here. I assume you can get it. It's this one, as well as there's a red Russian kale that you can get. It has a much milder taste than the black curly kale. So people tend, like, Kevin will eat this. My husband will eat this. He doesn't like this. So, and then the red kale. So they're more tender and milder, not as bitter as the green kale. So if you're that's the one that is kind of the most bitter, and that's the biggest complaint people say about getting greens. If you have any trouble with the bitterness, just eat spinach. Spinach is great, right? When it's not green. Swiss chard isn't bitter. So trying some of the other ones, but if you want to try kale, so smoothies is another good way to introduce greens into your diet, because you generally blend some liquid, something sweet to offset the bitterness. So you put some fruit in there. So that's a great way. And then your body actually generally adjusts to the bitter. I don't taste them as being bitter at all. So there's a lot of the good nutrients that are in the greens are actually what we call fat soluble. So you need fat to improve the absorption of them. You will absorb them regardless, but if you want to maximize the nutrient absorption, it's good to consider pairing greens with a healthy fat source, such as nuts, seeds, avocados, or tahini dressing, something like that. So that really helps maximize the nutrient absorption. So, and going back to if we're worried about the bitterness, blanching or boiling the greens seems to help remove some of the bitterness. But as you've seen, if you on this group, I'm always talking about my Asian kale salad, which I always have ready to go in the fridge. I always have a big batch of either the baby spinach or a big box or the spring mix. And everything I eat, like lunch and dinner, pretty much goes on a bed of greens. The calorie is like negligible. So, and microgreens are a great source. That actually the antioxidant levels in in baby spinach is almost up to 20 times more than in adult spinach. And that's because it's growing. It's still growing. So microgreens are the same way. It's a great way to get some increased nutrients, but you obviously won't eat very much of it. So a couple of caveats. You want to avoid alfalfa sprouts. I know we've talked about sprouts in this group before. Even homemade. Apparently the seeds have a lot of nooks and crannies where bacteria like to hide. So if the seeds were exposed at all to manure, contaminated water, they all hide in that. So you have a really high risk of getting a salmonella poisoning. So stick with the broccoli sprouts. And then the big one is greens and warfarin. So if you are on warfarin for a blood thinner, and this is not, I know I say things always drive me crazy, but people get started on warfarin, also known as Coumadin. People have blood clots or have atrial fibrillation. So they're told avoid all green leafy vegetables. And that's not the case. The case is that you need to be consistent. So the way warfarin works, it works by blocking vitamin K. It's what we call a vitamin K antagonist. So leafy greens have a lot of vitamin K. So you would think if you're trying to block vitamin K, you don't want to have a lot of vitamin K. But it doesn't mean that you can't eat them. It just means that you need to, your medical provider would need to titrate. So you need to be consistent. So you don't want to go on from a no vitamin K diet to like, I'm going to go on a pound of spinach every day. You would just need to you need to be consistent. So if you have your 2 servings every day and you're consistent with that, you just need to let your medical provider know so that we can adjust your dose of your Coumadin to match your vitamin K. Does not mean that you can't eat them and benefit from all the wonderful nutrients that are in there. So that's it for greens today. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. If you have your favorite recipes, you know mine, I love my Asian kale salad, but I also, I throw them in soups. Soups, I love them in soups. That sweet potato soup that I've been making is amazing, and I put lacinato kale in it. So eat your greens, 2 servings a day. Thanks for watching, and tomorrow we do other vegetables. Okay, see you then. Bye. Have a good one.